Alright guys, look at us now. We beat the Spaniards and we're finally free. Now, as a leader of the revolution and future president, I assure you that I will protect our country and I will let the China conquer us.
What's gonna be the American Congress?
Oh, sorry, I mean I will let the American conquer us. Philippines in the 19th century. Feudal, developed, prosperous, and the capital under the Spanish once called the Paris of the East. The colonization of Spain in archipelago began to collapse in 1880s when nationalism intensifies among the local population there that led to the creation of Katipunan. Was a revolutionary society with the ideological goal to unite the Filipino, establish a republic after independence, and revolt against Spain. And so the revolt began in August 1896. The organization led by Andres Bonifacio began to influence much of the Philippines, taking full advantage of Spanish failures. They attacked the capital and failed, but results in the revolt spreading to the surrounding 8 provinces. Eventually, there was an election for president and vice president at Tajeros in San Francisco de Malabon, Cavite, which will lead to command of Katipunan between Magdalo of Emilio Aguinaldo and Magdiwang of Andres Bonifacio, which both Magdalo and Magdiwang faction are Caviteños. While Andres Bonifacio from Tondo, Manila was nominated in both power, he was lost on presidential from Emilio Aguinaldo and vice presidential on Mariano Trias. When Bonifacio lost election, he was appointed as a director of interior, but one Cavite official that is the #1 hater of his opposed, appointing him as an interior director. Hey, you cannot be the interior director. Why? You don't have a diploma. Also, one more requirement for electing cabinet. You should be a close friend of president. Bye. And Bonifacio was enraged, saying, "Screw this! This election was a fraud. From now on, I will establish my own government and appoint myself as a president." Execute him. At that time, Bonifacio and his brother alleged treason, and Aguinaldo's fellows made execute them by his order. That year, Emilio Aguinaldo with his revolutionary and the Spanish government created a truce called the Pact of Biak na Bato, which temporarily reduced hostilities, and revolutionary officers exiled themselves to Hong Kong. And so, with $400 Mexican in their possession to purchase advanced firearms and ammunition, later returned to the archipelago. During their exile, Aguinaldo designed the Filipino flag as it looks today. The flag was created by 3 beautiful women and will be used once they achieve their independence. When the war broke out between Spanish and American in 1898, the American force sailed for the Philippines, and Aguinaldo also returned from Hong Kong after an exile and resumed a leadership role in the revolution. On June 12, 1898, he declared independence and established a temporary insurgent government until the Malolos Constitution was ratified in 1899. Shifting to a constitutional republic, the Republic of the Philippines was born. There's no turning back now. With the help of the America, they successfully kicked out Spaniards, but after almost 300 years of colonization, on August 12, 1898, the Protocol of Peace is signed in Washington, D.C. between the U.S. and Spain. In Manila, the Spanish already know that they are losing the war to the U.S. So the Spanish military commander asked to meet with U.S. military commander George Dewey. They met in secret and Spain be like, "Look, I know we're losing, but as a fellow white people, we never accept that we lose to those brown Filipinos. So we are willing to surrender to you, but not on them. Okay." So on that day, the US and Spanish military create a fake battle on Manila Bay. And the Spanish would intentionally lose and also end the war. At that time, US took the possession of the country's capital at the conclusion of the battle. They controlled the wall of the city and launched a blockade. Filipino revolutionary didn't allow to enter the city. Then US General Wesley Merritt, commander of US forces, established a military government. In the 2 weeks, Major General Elwell Otis appointed as governor of the archipelago. With the immediate action of the US, Aguinaldo did nothing to confront the Americans or investigate their real intention. So the Filipino Revolutionary formed a national assembly known as Malolos Congress. With this, they convened to lay the legal and constitutional foundations for what is to become the first Philippine Republic. However, both US and Spain didn't recognize a Philippine independency. This time, the US planning to annex the archipelago. And currently, the delegation of both Americans and Spanish has already begun a negotiation in Paris on the treaty to officially end the Spanish-American War. In fact, the Philippines tried to send a Filipino delegation to participate or at least observe the negotiation, but he's been denied participation. The formal treaty has been signed on December 1898 called the Treaty of Paris. The treaty specifies 17 articles addressing the following issues and specified that Spain would cede the Philippine island. in exchange for paying Spain $20 million. By this time, Spain had already no control in the archipelago, and the US doesn't also have an authority and only have a control to the whole city of Manila. Meaning, because Aguinaldo and Malolos Congress had already established a republic, but for the Americans, they didn't recognize their independence and government. They still called us a Filipino insurgent. Things got heat up when US President Mckinley issued a proclamation benevolent assimilation, which refers to a policy of the United States toward the Philippines. The US be like, alright, from now on, we're now officially friends. Don't worry, someday I'm here to conquer you. Oh, sorry, I mean to protect you against colonizer. But for a while, I'm in charge to govern the archipelago for next more than 40 years. Please don't touch me. As Aguinaldo read the proclamation, he issued a manifesto saying, "This is ridiculous. We've been fighting our freedom for more than 300 years and now the Americans turn to conquer us?" That's what I called agilable. With Aguinaldo's statement, the relationship between the two nations was deteriorating. Tensions quickly escalated between two nations that signally will go to war. So the question is, when did the war break? The war broke out on February 4, 1899 when the US fired the first shot. In Manila, the US Army started to camp in the Santa Mesa district. Their camp was surrounded on the Philippine Republic Army forces until US Private William Grayson sent 3 of the 1st Nebraska Infantry Regiment patrolling in the night the Santa Mesa district. They encountered 2 Filipinos approaching the outpost. They asked them to halt, but 2 Filipino men continued to advance, and they did this. The Battle of Manila, considered to be the beginning of the Philippine-American War. Both sides are surprised that this will be happen on unexpected time. The cabinets were freaking out. Aguinaldo's quickly attempt to negotiate a ceasefire by sending an emissary a letter. Look, things are heating up. I know your McDonald is in number 1 here and your soldier accidentally shot my army, but that's forgivable. Why don't we settle this through eating Jollibee? This is ridiculous! America? What does that mean? It didn't work. Perhaps just because I said that McDonald is in number 1? What? Why did you mention that? Shut up, shut up, shut up. Our troops are dying. Why don't we just act now and send more reinforcement? I warn you, those American monkeys can't be trusted. General Otis rejected the negotiation and he sent more than 10,000 troops. Over 19,000 American troops and 15,000 Filipino troops broke out full-scale war. The Filipino troops had been caught unprepared and leaderless as their general had gone home. The battle turns out with a decisive victory for America. At this time, their goal is to invade the nearby town. American strategy is to set up columns pushed north, east, and south from Manila and to gain control of the Pasig River which connects the Laguna de Bay to Manila Bay, permanently interrupting communication between insurgent forces in North and South Luzon. While the Filipino forces on Luzon Island split into 2, one section north and the other south of Manila. Antonio Luna led being a commander of the northern section while Mariano Trias is the commander of the southern section. 1 week after the first shot of the war were fired, skirmishes and battle from Visayas began to break out. February 10, the US forces launched an attack on Caloocan, the northern town from Manila. They met the Filipino forces that defended the town under the command of Antonio Luna, a Filipino army general characterized as a fiercest general at all his time. His commitment to discipline his army and serve the republic which attract the admiration of the people. But his temper and fiery outlashes caused some to arbor him, including people from Aguinaldo's cabinet. So Luna, receiving orders from Aguinaldo, rushed through the front lines from his headquarters at Polo. As a result of the battle, American troops launched an offensive attack, capturing Caloocan, place section of the Manila-Dagupan Railroad along with a large amounts of rolling stock in American hands. But in the second battle, Luna launched a prepared counterattack on the American position. But we were forced to withdraw after 2 days of fighting and it was an American decisive victory again. On March 17, 1899, General Otis reorganized his 8 corps in an offensive to pursue operation against Aguinaldo's forces north of Manila. Currently, Aguinaldo and his cabinet are on Malolos discussing what is their next move.